I remember the moment like it was yesterday. The new car key felt cold and heavy in my hand, a weight carrying years of sacrifice and hope. I handed it to Emma, my daughter, her eyes wide with surprise and a glimmer of gratitude that softened my tired heart. I had worked late nights for so many years to give her this symbol of freedom and responsibility. A dream I thought she understood, earned by the sweat and pain my wife and I poured into building our modest life. We gathered in the living room, the house filled with warmth and chatter, the smell of roast chicken mingling with the faint sound of rain pattering against the windows. The kind of evening that should have been marked by laughter and shared joy. Yet beneath the surface, tensions lurked, unnoticed by those lost in small talk and casual smiles. That night, I lingered a few moments too long near the kitchen doorway, a quiet observer as Emma's boyfriend, Ryan, leaned back smugly on the threadbare couch. His voice cut through the room with sharp arrogance, the kind that makes your skin crawl. "Honestly, I tricked her good," he said, eyes gleaming with cruel amusement. "Got her to sign those papers without even reading them. The car, it's practically mine now. She doesn't know how to hold on to anything." His laughter was low, bitter, riddled with contempt. "I'm telling you, old man, I'm the one driving that baby around. She's just the passenger." The words hit me like a fist. My breath caught, a slow burn igniting behind my chest. I kept my face steady, though inside something fractured, a sharp crack beneath the forged calm I upheld for so long. My voice came out softer than I expected, but firm, threading through the air like a cooled blade. "Ryan," I said quietly, stepping forward, "what exactly do you mean by that?" He snorted, his lips curling into an insolent sneer. "What I said. I took advantage. You gave her that car, and I'm the one benefiting."
"You think I'm going to hand it back? Not a chance." There was a moment where time seemed to freeze. Emma shifted uncomfortably between us, her eyes darting from her father's calm, almost tired expression to the smirk that oozed arrogance from Ryan. Her voice was sharp, cold. "Dad, enough! Stop acting like this is your business. You don't get to interfere." Her words stung, colder than the rain outside. I saw the calculation in her gaze. Not the daughter I knew, the one who once thanked me for every hard-earned sacrifice, but someone distant, guarded, ready to defend a deceit she could barely justify. I didn't say anything else. I turned away, an unspoken wound pressing deep into my chest. As I stepped out of that room, past the flickering hallway light, the silence around me swallowed what was left of the man who wanted only to protect and provide. My hands had stopped trembling, but the storm that brewed beneath my calm was far from over. Betrayal had been laid bare, and whatever patience I had left was beginning to snap, thread by fragile thread. What had been a gift, a labor of love, had turned into a weapon pointed right back at me. And I knew then, with a sinking certainty, that this was no longer just about a car. It was the breaking point. The quiet of my study was almost painful after the storm of the living room. I closed the door gently, almost afraid the echo of Ryan's words might sneak in and haunt the walls. I sank into my worn leather chair, feeling the familiar creak beneath me, a sound that carried decades of late nights, blueprints spread across tables, and the weight of responsibilities I'd shouldered alone for so long. My gaze settled on the scattered papers on my desk, old bills, bank statements, work orders from my engineering days, and a faded photograph of Maria, my late wife, beaming as she held young Emma between her arms. That smile was a beacon once, a steady light in the darkness. Now it felt like a cruel reminder of everything lost. The silence invited my mind to wander back through the years of sacrifice, those relentless overtime shifts, the endless balancing act between paying bills and saving for Emma's college.
I remembered the countless nights spent bent over spreadsheets and calculations, the hum of my laptop blending with the thick fatigue pressing on my bones. Birthdays I missed, dinners I skipped, quiet moments with Maria cut short by exhaustion. I did it all without complaint, believing every sleepless night was an investment in my daughter's future. I pictured those first steps Emma took, her tiny hand wrapped around mine, her entire world trusting me blindly. I saw myself, exhausted but resolute, promising Maria that I would keep our family safe and provide for the life we dreamed of. A modest home, a steady foundation. Every nail in the house's frame, every shingle carefully placed, was a testament to that promise.
The house had become more than shelter. It was the story of my love and perseverance. Then I thought about the car. That shiny vehicle was the latest symbol of my devotion, bought with money that trickled in from years of careful saving and stationing priorities besides my own needs. I wanted Emma to feel responsible, grateful, proud, things I thought she had understood until tonight. Ryan's callous smirk and cruel confession changed everything. It wasn't just about the car. He was treating a gift, a symbol of a lifetime of sacrifice, like a prize to be stolen and hoarded. His arrogance clawed at me, deep and raw, twisting the meaning of all I had worked for. The bitterness of seeing the person I trusted most, my own daughter, coldly defend him, cut deeper than any wound I could remember. I remembered Maria's grip on my hand before she passed, her whispered wishes that I would teach Emma respect, not just for hard work, but for honesty and family. I had vowed to uphold those values, to instill pride and dignity. How painfully distant those words felt now, watching the betrayal unfold before my eyes. But even in the pain, a fire was igniting, soft at first, like embers glowing beneath ash. This betrayal was not just personal. It was a challenge to everything I believed in. To walk away quietly would be to erase a lifetime of love and effort. That was not who I was. I let my fingers trace the rough edge of the desk, feeling the solidity beneath. The same resolve that had carried me through decades of engineering challenges came rushing back. I was trained to analyze, to dissect problems until only the facts remained, to find weaknesses and exploit them. Anger was a flame, but strategy was a blade, precise, relentless, and cold. I pictured the path ahead, long and uncertain. It was no time for blind fury or rash action. Quiet strength, careful moves, a plan forged in patience and intelligence, that was my weapon. I would not be a victim. I would turn their own arrogance against them. As the clock ticked steadily on the wall, marking moments slipping forward, I stood and stretched, feeling the weight of the years settle on my shoulders. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tonight, though, I let myself remember why this fight mattered. In the stillness before sleep, I revisited tender memories. Emma's innocent eyes, Mariah's gentle smile, the simple joy of small moments once taken for granted. Those memories were not broken, only clouded. Somewhere beneath the hurt, a thread of hope remained. Maybe, just maybe, Emma would come to see the truth one day. That hope gave me strength, a quiet, unyielding determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine, to prove that sacrifices, even unacknowledged, carve deep marks of honor. That betrayal, no matter how painful, could never erase the worth built from decades of love and sacrifice. And with that, I finally allowed myself to rest, knowing this was only the beginning. The days that followed settled into a heavy quiet, thick with tension that simmered beneath a growing resolve. I couldn't let anger dictate my actions. That fire could easily scorch what I needed most: clarity and precision. Ryan's betrayal wasn't merely personal. It was cold, calculated exploitation. After everything I had given, I could no longer be blind to the truth.
Ryan had always been slick, weaving vague stories about his startup business whenever anyone asked. He spoke confidently, maintaining just the right amount of secrecy to deflect questions while impressing those who weren't paying close attention. Over the years, I'd caught glimpses of him with spreadsheets and charts on his laptop, numbers that stirred something still sharp inside me, despite my years away from the intricacies of engineering and finances. Determined to uncover the reality beneath the surface, I reached out to Jim, an old colleague from my days dealing with finances, a man of steadfast principle and discretion. I presented the situation as objectively as I could, emphasizing the necessity of facts over feelings. Jim agreed to help, and it didn't take long before troubling signs began to surface, discrepancies that suggested more than mere mismanagement. Irregular transfers, inflated expenses, patterns typical of embezzlement. I immersed myself in those documents late into the night, chasing every stray figure, every odd entry. Each revelation chilled me further. Ryan wasn't just exploiting my family's goodwill, he was feeding a larger, far uglier scheme. Next, I contacted Margaret, a trusted lawyer and longtime friend whose sharp mind and unwavering ethics made her the perfect partner for what lay ahead. Over cups of bitter coffee, we mapped out a plan. We would collect indisputable evidence, build a legal case thoroughly, and prepare for the confrontation that would soon become inevitable, one that would put everything on the table, not just the keys to a car. The distance between Emma and me grew with every day. When I tried to reach out, to talk through the pain and betrayal, her walls only hardened. Trying to speak to her truth felt like shouting into a void. Eventually, she confronted me, her loyalties plainly stated. "That's his problem, Dad," she said, her voice cold but steady. "I won't be forced to pick sides." Her rejection didn't shatter me anymore. Instead, it hardened my resolve. That moment marked the death of any hope for harmony and the rise of purposeful action. I was no longer a desperate father pleading for understanding, but a man preparing to fight on a battlefield cleared of illusions. Loneliness gnawed at me, but it was tempered by overwhelming clarity. The family I had invested in was fractured beyond repair, yet my sense of honor remained intact, undefeated. My days became rhythmically bound to investigation and strategy, balancing conversations with Margaret and analysis with Jim. I pored over bank statements, tax documents, public records, anything that would expose Ryan's lies. My engineering mind, accustomed to untangling complexity, found renewed life. I dissected numbers like wiring schematics, looking for weak points, hidden pathways, irregular signs of deceit. Ryan's arrogance was almost palpable in every careless smile, every cocky word. He believed himself untouchable, armored by lies and manipulation. Emma's denial only emboldened him. But the truth we were unraveling moved steadily like a creeping tide, relentless, patient, eroding the foundation of his illusions. Each discovery added a new brick to the fortress of evidence forming quietly in my hands. Fear gave way to controlled anticipation. There was no longer an ominous storm on the horizon, just the clear, steady approach of reckoning. At night, preserve the original language of the text soft but clear in my memory, reminding me that justice is not simply punishment but restoration. It was a reminder that this fight was bigger than reclaiming a car or exposing a liar. It was about restoring dignity, balance, and the respect that had been lost. I found myself confronting my own reflection more often than I cared to admit, questioning whether I had the strength to see this through. But beneath the world-weariness, I saw a man forged by experience, scarred but undiminished. Piece by piece, I constructed a plan rooted in patience and intellect, financial misdeeds documented, legal strategy laid out, emotional distance accepted as necessary groundwork. Hidden within the grief and betrayal bloomed a quiet certainty that justice, pursued with unwavering precision, would prevail. I understood the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Ryan was a cunning adversary, sure to resist with every trick in his book, believing in his immunity. But I was no longer the man who naively handed over car keys with pride. I was calm, deliberate, methodical. From the ashes of betrayal, I forged not just a plan but a vow, to never be invisible or taken for granted again. To prove that even the deepest wounds could be met with unstoppable will and unwavering focus. I was done being the victim of circumstance. It was time to rebuild, to rewrite the story as its architect. And with each calculated move, I grew more certain I was heading toward a reckoning only I could command. A reckoning where justice would emerge quietly, untouchable, and absolute. Once the decision was made, my mind settled into a rhythm familiar from decades of engineering, a precise, methodical approach that demanded patience and attention to detail. Betrayal had shattered illusions, but ignited a cold determination that burned steadily beneath the surface. This was no longer a personal grievance, but a complex problem to solve, one that required strategy as much as strength. Ryan's arrogance was a vulnerability I planned to exploit. I focused first on his so-called startup. Jim's preliminary findings had raised doubts, but I knew there was more beneath the surface. I activated a network of trusted contacts, former bankers, forensic accountants, compliance officers, experts who could discreetly navigate financial records and uncover hidden irregularities without raising suspicion. Their expertise was invaluable, allowing a quiet investigation that moved swiftly beneath Ryan's radar. Margaret, my lawyer and confidant, was essential. Her sharp mind cut through legal complexities, guiding the plan from its investigative roots into actionable legal strategy. Together, we laid out a multi-layered approach: meticulous evidence gathering, strategic asset protection, and legal maneuvers designed to corner Ryan without alerting him to our moves prematurely. As the nights grew longer, our work took shape. I spent countless hours with Margaret and Jim, reviewing documents, cross-referencing tax filings, bank statements, and company registrations. Each piece of paper was a thread linking Ryan to increasingly blatant financial misconduct. Fraudulent invoices, suspicious transfers routed through shadowy entities, and inflated expenses that enriched pockets far beyond any legitimate business expenses. What had once been vague rumors crystallized into undeniable evidence. The ownership of the car, once a symbol of pride and sacrifice, became a crucial focal point. It stood registered in my name, a fact I hadn't fully understood until I investigated. This realization shifted the battlefield entirely. Through Margaret, I initiated quiet measures to place liens and hold orders on the vehicle, blocking any unauthorized sale or transfer. It was a calculated move, setting a legal snare that would tighten as the plan advanced. My engineering instincts guided every decision. I broke down the broader problem into manageable parts: the finances, the legal repercussions, the ownership status, the timing of each step. Every move was weighed carefully, designed to avoid mistakes or hasty actions that could create loopholes for Ryan to exploit. Patience was my greatest weapon. Throughout this intense work, the personal cost was palpable. Emma's cold distance was a sharp contrast to the warmth we once shared. Our interactions shrank to terse exchanges, silence heavy between us. I realized the more disconnected she became, the more protective I had to be, both of her and of the delicate case unfolding. It pained me deeply to see her so closed off, but I understood that this was necessary. If she knew the full truth too soon, the entire plan could unravel. In those hours of solitude, memories of Maria grounded me. Her quiet strength and unwavering belief in justice offered solace. She had always taught me that justice is about restoring balance, not only punishing wrongdoing. This fight was larger than me, larger than a car or broken trust. It was about reclaiming dignity and truth. The man I saw in the mirror during these long nights was weathered by life's storms, but resolute. The years had chiseled away naivety, replacing it with tempered wisdom and a resolve as unyielding as steel. This was the man ready to carry the burden forward. I assembled the pieces of the plan carefully, as one would engineer a complex machine. The legal filings and asset freezes formed the framework, financial documents and testimonies the gears and cogs. Each refuted Ryan's lies more definitively, building an impregnable fortress of proof. Every phone call with Margaret and Jim was a precise calibration, evaluating risks, preparing for contingencies, mapping each stage with foresight. The plan was no longer theory. It had become an unstoppable force, advancing with measured certainty. Ryan, still blinded by arrogance and self-assuredness, remained oblivious to the slow tightening of the noose. Every piece of evidence we uncovered chipped away at his impunity. His transactions, once thought clever and concealed, were now exposed to expert scrutiny and legal consequence. The process was grueling yet invigorating. I found a renewed sense of purpose in peeling back layers of deception. The same mind that once solved engineering problems was now dismantling lies. Each document uncovered, each legal barrier placed, was a quiet strike against the man who believed himself untouchable. This was not a fight fueled by rage, but guided by clarity, precision, and justice. The satisfaction I felt was not vindictive, but deeply rooted in the righteousness of the cause. Justice, I realized, is not loud drama, but a quiet, inexorable force. It moves with the inevitability of seasons, steadily eroding falsehood until only truth remains. Ryan's world, built on lies, was crumbling beneath the weight of his own hubris. At home, though isolated, I maintained discipline. The order I kept in my surroundings mirrored the control I was exerting over the unfolding battle. Every day pushed me closer to the point of reckoning where all the preparation would culminate. The car, once a symbol of pride, was at the heart of the legal efforts. Securing its ownership was critical not just legally, but symbolically, a reclaiming of what truly belonged. Margaret and I planned the next legal steps, filing motions to freeze assets, compel discovery, and build the official case ready to dismantle Ryan's facade. The move would inevitably provoke reactions, panic, desperation, but I was ready to meet them on my terms. I was no longer the man who had handed over the keys with open-hearted trust. I was a strategist, patient and methodical, working quietly but relentlessly. The reckoning I envisioned was slow and unstoppable, a crushing pressure that would break Ryan's defenses without fanfare or chaos. Beneath layers of legal strategy and financial scrutiny, I held an unshakable truth. Betrayal must be met with justice, not fury. With the precision and strength forged through years of sacrifice, I was crafting a reckoning that would not just punish, but restore. In this, I found renewed strength. The pain of betrayal transformed into purpose. The days ahead would test me, yet I was prepared, calm, focused, unwavering. This was more than a plan. It was the reclamation of my dignity, my legacy, and the assurance justice, pursued with the mind of an engineer and the heart of a father, is ultimately unstoppable. The legal actions set the wheels in motion for a gradual but assured downfall of Ryan's facade. From the moment the first motions to freeze his assets crossed the judge's desk, the careful balance of power began to shift. A slow, silent unraveling that no bluster or threats could halt. It wasn't the explosion of a public spectacle. It was a quiet symphony of relentless pressure, breaking down the walls built by lies, arrogance, and greed. Almost instantly, I noticed the shift in Ryan's world. The people who once smiled and nodded at his schemes, friends, neighbors, even casual acquaintances, began to distance themselves. The warmth of companionship faded like autumn leaves drifting away on a chill wind, replaced by whispers and suspicious glances that marked the beginning of social exile. Ryan went inward, pacing in restless circles, his confident swagger replaced by furtive movements and a flicker of fear in his eyes when you thought no one was watching. The car that had once symbolized my pride and sacrifice became something far greater, a legal linchpin and symbol of reclamation. Through the expert handling of Margaret, legal liens were placed quietly but firmly, ensuring Ryan's hands remained tied. Each motion reinforced my ownership, preventing any covert attempts at selling or refinancing the vehicle. It was a subtle but powerful reminder that the gifts given in trust were not his to take, nor to squander. Ryan's reaction ranged from anger to outright desperation. He resorted to veiled legal threats, sending terse messages through his dwindling circle of confidants, thinly veiled ultimatums dripping with bitterness. But I refused to be drawn out of my carefully calibrated approach. Through Margaret, I kept all communication formal, terse, and deliberate, speaking in a language only legal minds understood. Ryan's bluster faltered in the face of unwavering calm, his unpredictable temperament clashing with my quiet, resolute strength. Seeing him lunge for control and only tighten the net around himself was a quiet satisfaction. The slow cascade of court orders froze his assets. The severing of credit left him vulnerable to collapse. His once untouchable aura was eroding under the unyielding weight of consequences he refused to acknowledge until too late. Emma's role in all this was complex and painful. She stood between us, a fragile bridge twisted by loyalty, denial, and confusion. I saw the fissures in her posture, the way her eyes darted nervously when Ryan's name came up, the growing silence in which our conversations dissolved. Gradually, the protective armor she'd wrapped around herself began to thin, tumbling under the relentless pressure of reckoning. Doubt crept into her voice. Questions unspoken lingered between us, and guilt shadowed her every glance. When she finally broke, the words came in whispers weighted with regret and sorrow. "I didn't want any of this. I never meant for it to get so far," she said, her voice trembling with the weight of betrayal and shattered faith. Neither had I anticipated such pain. Yet there we were, standing among the ruins, confronted by the consequences of choices made in blindness and selfishness. In the final days of confrontation, Ryan was a shell of the man he pretended to be. Caught between rage and desperation, his arrogant defiance stripped away to reveal someone frantic to cling to what was slipping from his grasp. His reputation, his financial foothold, and influence all crumbled like sand beneath an advancing tide. Our paths crossed once in a brief, tense encounter. His eyes darted furtively, shadows of panic flickering beneath the surface, while my gaze remained steady, filled with the calm assurance of one who had weathered storms beyond reckoning. "You think you've won?" His voice was sharp but laced with desperation. "I'm just getting started," I replied, quiet yet resolute. Those few words held more power than any shouting match. They were the culmination of years of sacrifice, denial, and hidden struggle. The culmination of a man who had been pushed beyond patience into a space where calculated justice would see the end. I never allowed rage to dictate my course. Instead, I wielded the patient strength of strategy, moving while Ryan's world tumbled into chaos. Where he lunged blindly, I responded with measured intent. Where panic threatened to break him, I maintained control. The contrast between his flailing and my calm was a testament not just to the plan's power, but to a transformation deep within myself, the shedding of bitter naivety and the emergence of unwavering resolve. Watching the slow destruction of Ryan's empire was neither spectacle nor vengeance. It was an inevitable consequence. Every frozen account, every severed credit line, every legal document filed was a sure step toward restoring balance and justice. Amidst it all, I never lost sight of the deeper meaning behind this battle. The car, the house, and every hard-fought moment were not just symbols of possessions, but of principles, of countless hours dedicated to building a life grounded in honesty and sacrifice. Ryan sought to destroy that fabric, but I was determined to protect it. When the legal and financial dust finally settled, the silence that followed was profound, not empty, but filled with an unmistakable sense of rightness. The fight had not ended in a roar, but in the quiet reclamation of what was mine: dignity, trust restored, and justice served without fanfare. Reflecting on the journey, I recognized how it had changed me. I no longer yearned for pity or gratitude from those who had turned away. Instead, I'd found a strength I hadn't known I possessed, a strength rooted in reclaiming my own worth and honoring the sacrifices behind every step. When I finally settled behind the wheel of that car, the weight of the past bore down with a gravity both heavy and empowering. Every mile conquered was a testament to endurance, every turn a victory over betrayal. The fire ignited by treachery had not consumed me. It had forged me anew, a man steadfast in justice and unflinching in resolve. In that quiet moment, hands firm on the steering wheel, I vowed never to be anyone's fool again. The journey had shown me that betrayal, though painful, only fuels the unyielding fire of justice, a fire that burns long after the wounds have healed. When the day of the hearing finally arrived, the calm I felt surprised me. After months of painstaking preparation, of gathering every shred of proof and lining up every witness who could pierce through the veil of lies, I was ready. The weight of the past, years of sacrifices, late nights, and quiet hope pressed on me, but it grounded rather than crushed. I walked into that courtroom a man transformed, not by anger, but by resolve. The courtroom was hushed, the air thick with anticipation. The judge, preserved and watchful, gazed upon us with the impartiality that only years of experience could hone. Inside those walls, the truth would be laid bare not just as a collection of facts, but as a story of betrayal, resilience, and justice long overdue. The prosecutor's opening was precise, every piece of evidence cataloged and illuminated under the cold light of law. The ledger entries, bank statements, and digital correspondences were more than numbers and words. They were the trail of deceit Ryan had tried to cover, the fingerprints of fraud etched deep into his startup's facade. Witnesses, bank officers, and financial experts stepped forward, their testimonies weaving a web of undeniable proof that spoke louder than any defense Ryan could muster. Emma sat beside him, a shadow of the daughter I had once known. The tension in her posture, the flicker of doubt in her eyes, told a story her voice could no longer weave into denial. Each question asked by the prosecution chipped away at her defenses, peeling back the layers of complicity and willful ignorance that had prolonged this tragedy. When it came time for me to speak, I rose with a quiet dignity. My voice was steady, each word chosen for clarity and weight rather than bitterness. I recounted the life I had built for my family, the nights spent working overtime, the countless sacrifices meant to secure a better future for Emma. I spoke of the car, a symbol of trust and love, handed over with hope and expectation, only to be twisted into a tool of betrayal. I shared not just the facts, but the humanity behind them, the exhaustion, the heartbreak, and finally, the resolve that had fueled every step of this arduous journey. The courtroom listened, any skepticism drowned by the raw honesty in my testimony. Ryan's demeanor wilted under the scrutiny. His arrogance, once so brazen, faltered as the layers of his deception unraveled before the unyielding logic and honesty presented. His lies, exposed to relentless public examination, dissolved into impotent defenses and evasions. The man who had once sneered at my kindness now faced the consequences of a life built on exploitation. The judge's verdict was solemn but decisive. Ryan was found guilty on multiple counts: fraud, embezzlement, breach of trust. His assets were ordered frozen, restitution mandated, and his reputation forever tarnished. The judgment was not just a legal sentence, but a public reckoning, a restoration of justice to a family fractured by greed. The courtroom slowly emptied, leaving a heavy silence that felt strangely uplifting. The battle was won, but the war of healing had just begun. Outside, I caught sight of Emma. Her eyes were wet, reflecting a mixture of sorrow and burgeoning understanding. Our exchange was tentative, a fragile bridge over the chasm the betrayal had carved. It was a moment of truth for both of us, the first step toward mending. Ryan's downfall was absolute, a clear demonstration that no web of lies remains unspun forever. Yet my victory lay not in his ruin, but in reclaiming the life stolen from me, the dignity, the peace, and the future once clouded by betrayal. Returning home, the weight of relief and exhaustion mingled. The car sat in the driveway, a silent sentinel to all that had transpired. That old symbol of hope and love now felt like a talisman of endurance and justice. Sitting behind the wheel, the familiar feel of the steering wheel beneath my hands grounded me. Every mile ahead represented healing, every turn a rebuke to the past that had sought to consume me. The fire lit by betrayal had not been extinguished, but forged anew. A fire that would burn steady, fueled by the certainty that justice, no matter how long delayed, prevails. In that quiet moment, the text, "I vowed to guard my dignity fiercely and never again allow myself to be anyone's fool." The journey had been painful, but it revealed a truth deeper than losses. Betrayal may wound, but it also ignites a relentless fire of justice that, once lit, burns long after the wounds have healed. In the quiet aftermath, as the dust settled on a battle hard fought and won, I found myself alone with thoughts heavier than any courtroom verdict. Victory had come quietly, without fanfare or applause, but it was absolute. Ryan's lies, once towering like an impenetrable fortress, had crumbled beneath the weight of truth and perseverance. Yet the victory felt less like an ending and more like a doorway, the threshold to a new, uncertain chapter that demanded of me a strength deeper than justice alone. Outside the courthouse, I glimpsed Emma's eyes, soft, wet, weighted with a fragile mix of sorrow, guilt, and dawning understanding. We exchanged no words, only glances that bridged the chasm our pain had carved between us. It was a quiet moment of reckoning, a subtle step toward healing, worn by wounds too fresh to forget, but too fragile to ignore. Despite everything, there was a hint of connection, a vulnerability that spoke of possibilities yet unrealized. Returning home, the house greeted me with the familiar creak of settling wood, a reminder of simpler promises made and kept, and the endurance of life beyond the storms. The car stood in the driveway, a silent sentinel that carried burdens and blessings alike. Once a mere vehicle, it had become a symbol of survival, a talisman forged in sacrifice and vindication. Sitting behind the steering wheel, I felt the cool leather beneath my hands as an anchor to the present, the journey ahead stretching before me like a road unrolled from the past's heavy burden. Each mile became a small victory, each turn an act of defiance against the shadows that nearly consumed me. The fire ignited by betrayal did not flicker out. It was forged anew, steady and unwavering, a beacon for the long nights yet to come. The journey through pain had revealed a fundamental truth. Betrayal, with all its cruelty, also kindles a relentless fire of justice within those who refuse to be broken. That flame burns quietly at first, hidden beneath scars and silence, but once lit, it blazes persistently, lighting a path long after wounds have healed. I vowed then, in that stillness, to guard my dignity fiercely and never again allow myself to be anyone's fool. The path I had walked was paved with sacrifice and sorrow, but also with the undeniable strength of a spirit rekindled by adversity. The fight for justice was never just about reclaiming possessions or exposing deceit. It was about reclaiming identity, affirming self-worth, and building a future where respect and honesty prevail. Life moved on, subtle and unhurried. I found solace in everyday rituals, mending fences for neighbors, tending the garden where Mariah's favorite roses once bloomed, quiet morning walks down streets filled with memories. These small acts grounded me, offering silent testament that while the past held deep scars, it did not define the horizon. Emma and I took tentative steps toward rebuilding what had been fractured. It wasn't swift nor perfect. Trust, once broken, is a fragile thread to weave anew. But in those moments of shared silence, wary smiles, and occasional conversations, I glimpsed a future where understanding might one day outshine the pain. Reflecting on all I had endured, I recognized how profoundly the journey had transformed me. The youthful man who once gave freely and trusted blindly had been tempered by fire and resolve. I was no longer swept by hope or heartbreak alone, but steadied by wisdom forged in trials and the quiet assurance of a man who knows his worth. The road ahead remained unknown, marked by the remnants of betrayal and the challenges of healing. Yet I faced it with a heart unburdened by illusion and a spirit unwavering in its pursuit of justice and peace. And in the depths of my soul, I knew this: the fire still burned, steady and true. Betrayal may wound, but it could never extinguish the light of justice. That flame, once kindled, illuminates dark paths and guides those who choose to walk forward with courage and clarity. In that truth, I found my peace.